We're sneaky.
There we go.
So is your router acting correctly?
So far I'm on it now.
Good deal.
I tested it on my phone last night when I got home and just got home now, so I was like, I hope it works because I don't have much time.
She had to bring a router over so I could take a look at it. She plugged in for the last show, and then whenever she unplugged it, like it didn't want to communicate. Her laptop didn't want to communicate with the router anymore, so she reset it and did all the setup stuff, and ended up with 2 networks.
Because I'm special like that.
Yeah. That's messed up.
But I did figure out how to put the password on.
Yes,
I just couldn't figure out how to name it what I wanted to name it.
Yes. And do you want to share what the name of your network is?
My network name is your mom. So that when people log on, it says, now connected to your mom. It's the best network name ever, right?
That is pretty good.
I still kind of like FBI surveillance fan, but you know.
That one is fun too. Yeah. I like pretend pizza. Pretend pizza van number 1 and pretend pizza van number 2.
Yeah.
I think we're going to change our Wi-Fi. Chris is on her way. She's just finishing up the dishes.
Good deal.
Is my chewing, can you guys hear it? Because this is like the other half of my dinner.
It's not bad.
No. I'll stop before the show starts.
By the way, you look good this morning on the news. I didn't see it until you posted it, and then Christy was like, "Did you see Jen was on the news?" I was like, "Oh, I forgot about that." So.
Yeah, they didn't post it till like the end of the afternoon, so.
But at least they posted it the same day, unlike what's it called?
Yeah, the other one. Yeah, the other one took forever. So, and I wasn't on that one, so you know.
Yeah.
But Lisa did a really good job, I thought.
No, I think she did too.
You know, for 3 in the morning, or getting up at 3 in the morning, Jesus. Yeah.
So do you think Channel 6 will come out, or?
I hope so. Working on it.
But don't they usually come out like the morning of the events or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they all usually come out at the event, but I'm hoping they'll do like a preview before.
Okay.
But, you know.
Well, depending on the time and everything, let me know if you need me. I'm since the wife's back home, I might be able to make that. Granted, I say that I'm dying. I have barely been getting 6 hours of sleep the last couple of nights, and I'm like, I got to fix this. So.
So, Mandy, you saw Joanne?
Yeah. She was asleep, and I was like, her sister called me in, and I was like, no, you don't have to wake her. And she's like, Joe. So she got up for a bit.
Yeah, I went yesterday afternoon.
Was she still in ICU?
No, and I forgot to tell you her room changed. I'm sorry.
No, Bruce did.
Oh, he did? Okay. Because she sent it like last minute, and then I went and forgot that you were going. But, yeah, she, talking about getting up and taking Uber home. And she cut her grass over the weekend. Did she tell you that?
Oh, no.
Crazy bitch. Like, our friend had, like, brain surgery to remove, like a tumor or something. And she's supposed to have it Friday. And then they sent her home because they couldn't get to her. And she's like, yeah, I cut my grass over the weekend. This fucking bitch.
No.
Yeah. That's what I said. I said, you have friends that can come do that for you, right? Like, you can just ask for help. But
yeah.
Apparently not.
She didn't. And I didn't even think to offer that because,
Well, you also probably didn't know that it needed to be cut because...
But I do know that she does it every single week, like religiously. So I should have thought, oh, she's going to want to do this. But, yeah.
How does she still have grass?
I was going to say, geez.
Some people in Texas water their grass, which is a big waste of water and resources to me, but some people still do it.
Okay, I water my grass because I don't want my foundation to crumble, okay?
Well, there's that, yeah. But.
That, and I worked really hard to put it in along with my friends and family, and I still feel like anytime and I know they're not. I know for a fact my family doesn't do this, but it still kind of irks in the back of my head that they're coming over and they're seeing, some of these spots where the dogs have basically killed the grass, and they're just like, yeah, I remember that weekend I came over here in the rain and helped you put down the grass, and this is how it looks. This is how you respect my work.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I have a yard full of weeds. So that's what I inherited with the house, and that's what it stayed as.
That's what it shall stay as.
Yep.
Rock's not bad. I'm just afraid it would cause the house to overheat, though, reflecting all the light. Which I guess that's something I should look into is with it reflecting the light. I mean, obviously the grass would absorb more of the heat than the rock would reflect. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Of course, it can't be as bad as asphalt, so.
Canada doesn't have to worry about this yet.
Not yet. We've had our heat waves. It felt
Heat waves.
Oh no, it felt like 40 here a few times this past week. So,
not quite 40.
No, down in the city it did.
Well, not here.
Not here, but a little further inland it was over 40. So, would be.
So that's like 100 something, and
I think so. Yeah.
Celsius, Fahrenheit,
back to American.
Backwards American.
104-ish.
It's pretty hot.
Oh yeah. For a bunch of people that are used to snow, yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't have any air conditioning in this house, so that doesn't help either.
Oh yeah.
Cooled off enough though. We go for a quick swim in the lake and it cools you off.
My sister's in Oregon, and not everything there has central air and heat, so she's coming from Texas, on those hot days. She's like, I don't understand how you guys do it.
Just do. You make do.
Mandy, have you decided what you're going to be next weekend?
Like present or not?
For Geek Fest?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll make it.
Oh, really? Did none of them? None of the days?
Well, I work on Saturday, and then, yeah. So maybe the after party? I'm going to be one of those, like, cool kids that only shows up for the after party.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything going on Saturday other than Rocky Horror, the unofficial Rocky Horror that we're not affiliated with. But Friday night, the Beltonian's doing a thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Free entry, you get, and they're going to show cartoons and just have food and drink for purchase. So that should be fun.
Yeah, that's the one I saw.
He wanted to do it Saturday, and Barb was like, no, we can't compete with the other stuff that's going on.
It's about 3 minutes.
Let's see.
I've sanded down 2 more skateboards for painting, so.
Nice.
I also got a couple of canvases, so I'll actually be painting again soon.
Shh. Oh, wait it.
Stop. So, more art on the way. Yes, hello.
Hello.
My fancy wine cup.
Yes, it is a very fancy wine cup.
Do you see what is mounted on the wall behind Mandy?
Oh.
Oh, you can't see it. Sort of.
I can see it in my face.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I killed it myself.
I was going to say an innocent unicorn lost its life.
You drink its blood?
Yep, I'm immortal.
Glitter blood.
Silver.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Got some more.
Well, I figured out a better way that I'm going to mount the ball to the staff. So yeah, but I got that figured out. So, but I did find plastic instead of glass because like I told you last night, Jen, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to walk around with glass.
Yeah.
Be my luck, my wand or my staff would like fall over and just shatter and be like, well, that sucks.
Or some idiot would run into it, or.
Yeah.
But you found a Fiero shirt, or you're making one? You said.
No, I'm going to make one. So we did find them on Amazon, but they were like $14, $15. But Christy's like, don't we still have like T-shirt transfer stuff for like when we went to Disney? And I'm like, yes, because they would look all beat up, and that would be perfect for the 80s. So
nice.
Yeah, I went and bought a cheap T-shirt today, and I'm going to print off the logo and iron it on, and be good to go.
Sweet.
Yay.
So.
Well, I got to try on my cloak yesterday, and the hood is really cool. So
Yes, it is.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It was very cool. I totally forgot about it until you pulled it up, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Sorry, I don't have any cool pictures of my staff to show you guys, but
That's okay. We'll wait.
You have wands. You have wands, though.
I know, but you've been showing your staff off, so I feel compelled to have a staff.
Well,
It's okay. Listen, you can have your wand, and that's fine. Wands. You've got.
Ryan says they have skateboards in Canada. They must have payment too. Nice.
Sometimes. Depends where you live.
You've got gravel somewhere.
That'd be hardcore skateboarding on gravel.
Oh God, that'd just be stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a skate park in our town not too far from us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Cyrus. I've been sharing pictures of my staff that I made. But since you're not on Facebook anymore, you're not getting things. So, but yes, my staff that I made that is made out of
ground staff
foam and PVC pipe.
His long, hard staff.
It's
that
5
he
feet.
Wants to show off.
It did turn out 5 feet. That was the thing. Like I bought it. It was 5 feet because in the book, the staff has to be 5 feet exactly. And then I kind of bent it a little bit, and I was like, it's not going to quite be 5 feet. But then when I put the adapter in there so I can take it apart so it'll travel better, it went back up to 5 feet. And I'm like, yes, I'm still accurate to the book. So.
See, I'd want to. Never mind.
What? Go ahead. No, say it. Say it.
I'd want a staff that's over my head and
like
but I'm trying to be as accurate. I mean, I've already said I'm going to have a brim on my hat, which Phil technically doesn't have, but yeah.
He wants a Gandalf staff.
Damn right.
Okay, Gandalf the gray or Gandalf the white?
I want the Gandalf the gray.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the better staff. I mean, the white was cool, awesome. But yeah. Because it kind of looked like the wood was like almost like it was a flame itself or whatever. Yeah, that was cool. Especially when he did the whole thing where he was kind of blowing into it like it was like he was starting a fire with it to light the way. That was, I need to fucking go back and watch those movies. Those movies were awesome.
We need to have a watch party.
He puts them on for the puppy when we leave.
You what?
He puts them on for the puppy when we leave.
Oh.
So the puppy's got something to listen to.
Well, it is a long series of movies that never ends.
Yeah.
The director's cut on, and it's like
4 hours.
Christy would kill me. Would kill me. She already thinks they're too long. I'm like, there's like a longer version, right?
They are. Listen, I watched them. Isn't that enough? And I enjoyed them. I just don't want to watch The Hobbit.
No, you don't want to watch The Hobbit at all.
Boring.
I liked The Hobbit. It was not as good as The Lord of the Rings, but it was all right.
Okay.
They did kind of drag it out. Honestly, they probably could have cut it into 2 movies instead of 3, but whatever.
They should have made 3, no. But
I understand Peter Jackson was like, dude, I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on this shit. Mm-hmm. This is my world, and I want to play in it for as long as possible.
If I were Peter Jackson, I'd probably do the same thing.
Yeah. At least you didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. If I had that kind of money, if I was that stupid rich, I'd buy some weird shit and do some even weirder shit with it. I would.
Famous last words.
Station just for this show.
I'd buy some weird shit and do some weirder shit. I love that.
You're about to give me an idea for an episode.
Oh, shit.
What would you do if you had, let's say, some stupid amount of money?
Limited funds.
Go.
You had
A billion.
access to the file, and you could just keep
Oh, the
changing
file.
the decimal. What would you do?
Yeah, that's a
See,
good
the
one.
file's a whole other thing.
Well,
Yeah,
then you
'cause
have
then
to
that
figure
opens
out
up
how to not get caught with all that money.
Well, see, I'm thinking, well, no. Because you can't replicate coins or money because technically, that would be counterfeiting, and eventually they'd be like, well, these are now copies of the same.
These all have the same serial number.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Coins is one thing, but yeah.
Yeah, coins you could get away, but do you really want to have to make $1 million $1 coins? Or
Yes.
Goonies.
And be like a pirate. Here's my stash.
you could Scrooge McDuck that shit, not actually jump into it because that, of course, would break your neck. But I'm just saying.
Like Scrooge McDuck and his big boat
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
dives into his money. Oh.
You just know someone's going to do it, though. So you would go to show someone and they'd be like, dude, I'm going to be Scrooge. And you're like, dude, you're dead now.
Dead.
Great. Now I have to deal with that.
Yeah, you know what you do? You'd have to install like an emergency button. So as soon as the person goes to jump, you hit the button and a big air mattress blows up. So they hit the air mattress. And it was... You right?
Don't die, E.T.
Wrong tube.
Where's the cough button? We don't have the broadcast system yet.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Ditto.
Okay.
You okay? She's going back for more drinks, so it's all right.
I'm good.
No, I'm dying.
More? Okay.
More wine, please. Thank you.
Right away.
Oh, you have the rosé open. Ultra.
Did you guys play Kalinopoly, or did Mandy leave?
I got kicked off. I'm here now.
Oh. Did
Okay.
you play Kalinopoly?
He sent me a photo tonight. They're playing it at the firehouse.
Did he tell you I saw him at HEB?
Yeah, that's so weird.
I was like, oh, hey, what's up? Heard you got a new game to play. He said downtown is the most
Kalinopoly.
expensive piece on the board. I was like, they didn't research that.
I was going to say, what is the most expensive piece on the board?
Downtown Clean.
What? No, that should be like the first fucking thing on the board.
That should be what is that?
The first two.
Baltic or something?
Yeah, Baltic and yeah.
But
Yeah.
I sent her a photo because one of the pieces, there's 6 pieces, and one of them is a pretzel.
I
was
made
like,
the board. It's my nickname, Pretzel. It's really original.
But you like pretzels, or you can fold yourself into a pretzel?
Well, I do like pretzels, but my name rhymes with it, and
Oh, pretzel.
it's a much original nickname that I've had since, elementary school, because kids. And then our friend Fred decided that was my name. So
Yeah.
Way better than what I had.
what's that?
Yay, Ray.
Oh, well, that's original.
Oh yeah. Well,
But you know what? Ray is an awesome name because that's my middle name.
That's your middle name?
Is it really?
Yeah. Jennifer
it-
Ray with an
it-
E.
I was just going to ask if it was A-Y or A-E.
A-E.
Logan's middle name is Rain,
or A-Y-N.
but she wouldn't. Yeah, because I wanted it Logan Ray, and he wouldn't go for it. So tacked an N at the end of that, and now he's fine with it. I got my way.
N made all the difference.
Now it's Rain.
Done.
Compromise. This is what relationships are all about.
Apparently.
You know? I mean,
Add an
Quinn-
N at the end, and it's
Oh yeah, like I totally made a deal with Christy. I was like, if we have the eldest boy, we'll have either Marvin, Robert, or Eugene in the name because I'm the eldest son of the eldest son of the eldest son, and we've either had the name Marvin, Robert, or Eugene, or a combination of those names. And she actually was going to make a deal with me when we first found out we were having twins. She's like, if we have a boy and a girl, it cannot be their first names, and we will not call them this. But if we don't have to use one of those names, we can go with Luke and Leia. And I'm like, deal.
Oh.
Had 2 boys. I'm like, nope, rule's still in effect. So that's why we have Nicholas Eugene.
Look at Leia. Would have been amazing.
Oh, you kidding me? Every morning. I am your father.
Logan and Quinn go to school with a set of siblings, and their names are Arwen and Strider.
Nice.
Those are their names, yeah.
And
So
I'm
do
kind
you-
of, damn it!
I know.
I should have done that.
Arwen's a pretty cool name.
Do you like hold it over their heads now, Eugene? Why couldn't one of you have been a girl?
No, because just doing some rough, back of the napkin mathematics, I'm pretty sure had one of them been a girl, it would have been Alex. And I'm already dealing with enough attitude from a little boy.
That's true.
And
Girls are
and I love my niece to death, but yeah, that's she's a firecracker, let me tell you. So, oh Lord, there's a whole thing going on in the chat room. Apparently, I have messed with Cyrus somehow or another, and now they're creating a blog between him and Ryan. And they're outraged and going to Twitter. I don't know. I lost track a while ago.
Oh dear.
Yes, so I'm not worried. They're going to Twitter because no one's on Twitter anyway. So, or at least they're deleting their accounts.
That being said, I did tweet for my very rare times that I actually tweet.
Yeah, you don't tweet. You don't do much with social media, though.
No,
right?
I don't. But I had to with this one. So with everything that's going on with Star Trek and Picard coming back, I had to.
Oh, I did see that tweet.
Yes, I had to tweet. Whoopi Goldberg saying, "Please come back as Guinan," and then I put the hashtag. I would love for this to catch on, but I don't think it will. Picard and Guinan at Tanagra. So
that's
nice.
One of his favorite episodes.
I love it.
It is one of the best episodes ever. Like, did you know that there are actual linguists that are have done deep research on that episode because of the ideology of a language based on cultural events as compared to other things, and they're just like, that is a really good idea. And so no, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about before we get started here. Then they were talking about it. They were like things they wanted to see and didn't want to see. And for the most part, they're like, well, we don't necessarily want to see just a bunch of, random cameos. If they come back and that's interesting, that might be fine or whatever. And the one guy brought up, he's like, do you think John Delancey by chance is sitting by his phone just waiting for the call to come back as Q? And I'm like, oh my God, yes. Please bring back Q. Which something else, bringing it back to the unicorn. Do you know what his current gig is?
No, what's he do?
Apparently, he has a recurring voice role on the My Little Pony series as, I think, Mischief, I think is his name or whatever. Basically, he's Q, but in My Little Pony. And I'm just like,
that's awesome.
That is great.
Aw, that's pretty great.
You know what? It would be awesome is, so apparently this is not going to have, we are not going to have the Picard that we are expecting. Like, this is going to be Picard that's broken down after 20 more years of whatever. And so, apparently he was saying, don't be waiting for the same Picard. This is.
So we're gonna get Professor X and Logan.
I was just thinking that.
That's.
Fuck.
Yeah, that could be an interesting thing, but I don't know if I want to
kill myself now. Like,
yeah.
No, I don't think that. I think what's going to happen is because they know what Star Trek brought, and that particular series brought a lot of hope. And what Patrick Stewart said, what brought him back to the role essentially was what touched him the most was a cop over, I can't remember which state it was, but he was a sergeant, and he said, I have seen the worst of humanity. And on those days that I think that I can't bear anymore, I put on Star Trek and I say, we have hope. And he wrote that to Picard, to Patrick Stewart. And Patrick Stewart's like, that's what, brings me back to a role like this, is having that hope. So.
And so cute.
Needing some of that hope thing, because lately.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
It would be interesting though if they could get Magneto.
Ian McKellen.
Get Ian McKellen in there somehow.
Oh my god,
Yes.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Just have him like walk past in the
Yeah.
background. Make him like an inept
Cameo.
I can't.
That'd be amazing.
It's like Daniel Craig in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Their bromance is like everything, though.
Oh, I love
yes.
It's the
They're
cutest thing.
it. They're adorable. They remind me so much of my granddad.
Mm.
Don't they? They're like around the same age too.
Oh yeah.
My granddad's the coolest guy on the planet. He's so chic. I mean, he's cool. He likes jazz. He wears jeans and leather jackets. He was in the fucking Air Force. He's so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
He's still cool.
All right.
Cool.
So that we don't run too late tonight and maybe I can actually get to bed, let's go ahead and get started. I keep promising myself before midnight. Get in bed before midnight. Before midnight. Oh, Lord. I can't read the chat room anymore. I'm now being compared to Lyndon.
Like
All right.
the-
We're getting started. Reading the mic in 3, 2.
You're listening to the Marginally Geeky Show at Geek Book Club.
Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show, the epically geeky book club. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight, we are talking about book 4 in the Magic 2.0 series, Fight and Flight. Joining me tonight is Chris and Ray from Canada, Jennifer and Mandy. How are y'all doing?
Hi.
Excellent.
Doing good.
Excellent, huh? So anything of interest going on since the last time we talked?
Book wise?
Anything wise. I mean, I know Jennifer and I have been like running around taking care of Geek Fest stuff, her more so than me, but we've done some cons and yeah.
So non-geek related, we are getting ready to do the kids' bedrooms one more time, and hopefully for the last time, because dear God, they've outgrown their rooms, and so we are taking down their loft beds and turning them to a shorter version of a loft bed, and having extra
Just
storage.
platform beds.
Yeah, it's a platform bed with more storage and stuff like that. And
They're growing up.
They're growing up, and they don't need they don't need the place.
Aw. You guys are always doing something in your house.
I know.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah. So
Hopefully this
Sounds
is
exhausting.
so this will be the last bit, and
and the inside side.
for the inside, and then the inside is completely done. And if any other suggestions get made, I'm going to say no.
I'm gonna divorce or something.
Respectfully decline.
Oh.
So we're working on that. Picked up a new window for the bathroom so that we can use that window elsewhere, and just should be good on that one. For my geeky stuff, art-wise, I was saying at the beginning of the podcast that I've got a couple more skateboards ready for painting, and then other than that, I got a couple of more oil paintings in my head that are coming out, and
Yeah, I bought some canvases today.
Nice.
Oh, good deal.
Nice.
I finished my staff. Well, almost. I still have to mount the ball to my staff, but we can talk about that more later. Because it actually has everything to do with this episode, because Geek Fest is happening here in about 2 weeks, and Jennifer and I and Lainey, if she ever gets caught up, are actually cosplaying as some of the characters from the book. So I'm going as Philip, and my robe is right over here, and until my hat gets done, I'm not going to quite show it on here, but who knows? The next episode may be hosted by someone else. Just let me know. All right.
He'll
so
be
with
in
that,
costume.
yes, perhaps. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. So this is book 4, Fight and Flight. Opening thoughts, just real quickly. about the book?
This was not Chris's favorite.
No, the book 3 and book 2, book 3 and book 4 have not been
Right.
good.
I didn't
For
mind.
me, I didn't mind it. It moved the story along, but it was all right.
Move the story along. You and I have had a conversation, Eugene, that yes, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Jen, thoughts?
I feel like it took forever to get through everybody's story, and they didn't have to like I didn't really care for the way that he broke it up into 5 or 6 different stories that we had to constantly go back to.
Mhm.
That was just a little too much. And then it was just, constant. Like, I think 2 or 3 is enough,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
to break it up into that many. And then it just made it take so long to get through all of them and get to the final. So I think it could have been shortened a little.
There were some funny parts.
Yeah.
Into and I liked the teaming up that they did somewhat.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
the
right.
Scottish scene had me rolling. Like,
Oh, I loved that.
I was dying in my car listening to him doing all those accents.
ancestors would have been shaking.
Yeah.
As
Oh
to
yeah,
how-
no, that's, yeah.
And my wife, Moira. My 3 daughters.
I love her.
Yes.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick and say I actually liked the pairings up, and I did like that they broke it up into these pairings because we got to see a little bit more of some of the characters. Like in previous incarnations, we've only got to know Roy and Jeff a little bit, and seeing them together interact together, especially, I mean, we did get quite a bit of Roy in the previous book, but like Jeff, we've never really gotten a lot of Jeff, and we actually got quite a bit of Jeff in this one, which I did like. I liked seeing how Tyler and Gary had to interact with each other. The Scottish
Gary's
stuff
such
is
an idiot.
actually the Scottish stuff is actually the stuff that drove me the most insane. Like, I was like, I get it. I get the joke. Can we shorten it a little bit? Because it just kept going, which I understand. That is the funny part, is the fact that it kept going and going and going. But yeah, that's what I was just like, okay, all right, let's get through this part next. So, but what did you think, Mandy?
Not the best one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of the four that we've read thus far, I would say of the 4 that we've read thus far, this would be my least favorite of the 4.
Yeah.
I mean, I still enjoyed it. The first time I read it, I thought it was okay, and then I've read it several times, and since I've read it more, additional times, it's grown on me. But yeah, of the 4 books that we read thus far, it's my least favorite. But like I said, I still enjoyed it. So, I guess so. Let's go and jump into it. The book literally starts off with Jeff explaining that, hey, guess what? Everyone's almost died like multiple times, and has a chart. And starts, talking about, well, we died doing this, or you almost died, this, that, and the other. And they start pointing out things like, have you noticed, like, it all happened after Martin got here and stuff like that. And so they all decide, well, we need to start taking this more seriously. Roy backs him on that. And he's like, yeah, we need to, we have the Cato protocol. And he's like, yeah, but we're fighting each other and we're pulling our punches on that. We need to, like, really start training. So they quickly vote to start training, and then unfortunately, and I have been in many a situation in different things where it's like, I vote to do this, yay, and I say that they have to do all the work. Everyone agree, yay, and unfortunately screwed someone over with that. So poor Jeff unfortunately gets the job of creating the army that they're going to fight. And there is a funny part at the beginning that Gary is trying to influence everyone as to what they should be fighting.
Stupid Carrie.
And even though Valkyries could be versatile, the part where we get down to metal bikinis is where everyone draws the line. And then literally the next scene is they're in a battle. Martin is being chased by a dragon. Phil is spotting everyone because he's killed his dragon with missiles. I did love some of the stuff that they came up with for their weapons. Gary's using Spider-Man webs. Martin turns into his giant, silver, avatar of himself, but he drops the staff. Britt multiplies herself and like shoots at a dragon. Martin starts punching the dragon and it does nothing. And Jeff's like, punch it in the side. Try in the side of the head. So he tries that, still not doing everything. Gary starts using machine guns, and there's a whole conversation about how that's not. They're like, dude, you're a wizard. Why are you shooting Uzis? Martin does finally bring down his dragon, and then Martin ends up attacking Tyler. He goes to attack the final dragon, or what he thought's the final dragon, and it's Tyler. Gwen's being chased by 2 dragons. Has a really cool thing. Like, her robe basically just like lengthens and then like engulfs one. I thought that was really cool.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
Everyone ends up killing the last dragon, and they fly down to the ground, and Martin does something that he mentioned in the last book. He literally calls for his staff to come to him like Thor's hammer, which, you know, Gwen, you know, says, you do that on purpose, don't you? And he's like, when you? And yeah, I would. If I had something that I was like my phone, if I could just like fucking call my phone in my hand, I guess I would. So, but then they start talking about what happened, what went wrong, so on and so forth. And, you know, unfortunately, they're kind of laying in on Jeff. They're like, Jeff, you know, the dragons are too, you know, we know what's going on with them. And we know you're doing your best, but this still isn't very realistic. You know, what can you do? And he's kind of down about that. And as they all start disappearing, and the only reason I bring it up is because it does play an integral part later on. Gary tells Tyler that he has to go replace the Gene Simmons doll that's normally on his staff because he left it in the latrine. And of course, Tyler's like, I would never, as a grown man, be playing with a doll while what? So,
this is also the guy that goes back to the future every time he has to use a bathroom.
Exactly. Which I don't know if I can necessarily blame him. Just saying.
I just like they mention every once in a while how many years the toilet's been in constant use.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. So, the next thing we're introduced to a new character, Honor. She's a young girl. She's got a small dog with her, and she brings Bishop Gilbreth mutton. And there's a whole conversation about whether or not, you know, how much she should be tithing because her family is very poor. She's lost her parents and like her older brother's raising her. And then the dung sifter shows up and he basically kind of gets the same deal. He's like, listen, you can tithe half as much as well, as long as you promise the money you didn't find. Anyway, they go into the church, they come out of the church, and they run into Phil and Britt. And she, you know, just kind of asks some questions, and the bishop's like, you know, I don't trust wizards, but I trust my friend Philip, and kind of tries to explain that to her. After that, it's a week later. They're fighting the dragons again, and they've met at Jeff's cave where there are 7 dragons, and they're like, yeah, the dragons were harder to kill because they just kept running away. Like, you know, it doesn't really, they're kind of supposed to attack us. Why do they keep running away? And he just gives this he wants them to ask the right questions, but no one's biting. Like, he's like trying to get them to ask, why do you have 7 dragons in a constant cage? And why, you know, what did you do to make them better or whatever? And so he's, you know, kind of sketchy about that, but, you know, no one's really asking the right questions anyway. So the next scene is Honor is watching her sheep, and one disappears. So she takes her dog Runt and she goes to find where this is, and she comes across the cage and finds Jeff basically trying to get the sheep to attack him. But she thinks he's, of course, trying to feed the sheep to a dragon and gets scared and runs off. And at this point, Jeff's like, you know, he's trying to figure out how he can get the sheep to attack, and basically sends the sheep back. She gets back, notices the sheep is back, has no proof as to what the crazy wizard in the forest is doing with a bunch of dragons. And she goes to tell the bishop and her brother, you know, what her brother Sonny what's going on. So,
yeah. Well, no, I said something about Honor. As a woman, a girl growing up, I'm happy she's really headstrong and she's super stubborn and she stands up for what she believes. As a parent, fucking annoying.
Yes.
Just listen for 5 seconds, child. I'm gonna smack you There were times where I'm like, yeah, honor, and other times I'm like, as a parent.
No, and I completely agree. I like the fact that she, like you said, she's outspoken.
I love that. But
she believes what she believes to a fault.
Yes.
But like you said, at some point, it's just like, if you would listen for 5 seconds,
just shut up.
We could have avoided all of this.
She's 9. She's 9 years old.
She's 9.
She's 9.
Yeah.
It'll serve her well when she gets older, but as a
it might
parent
not.
to a 9-year-old, it was just like,
Yeah.
all your restraint, not to just lay in
Smack her.
Yep.
Let's see here. It's the next morning. Phil and Britt wake up in her place. Well, actually, it's their place. It's connected by a portal. I know that probably drives Jennifer insane.
I don't fucking understand that at all.
I think
whatever.
What?
None of it makes sense. It just doesn't make sense.
It does make sense. It's 2 buildings and there's a door that connects the 2, and it just happens to be over time and space.
I love
They're
it.
in
I think
different time periods, different schedule. Like, nothing about it makes sense.
That's the key to successful relationship. Is
that's
how separate bathrooms, separate.
Yep.
shrines.
I love it.
Yeah.
I freaking love it.
Yep. So they wake up and there's banging on one door and yelling at the other. So they basically go their separate ways to find out what's going on. And Hubert the Dung Snifter catches Philip, runs inside, and he's telling him there are dragons outside. And Philip's like, okay. So he goes outside, and sure enough, he's like, oh, okay. So he calls Martin and Gwen, who are also trying to figure out what they're going to do for lunch. And he's like, why don't we go? She's like, well, why don't we go to this place, where I live? And he's like, well, why don't we do something where I live? And she goes, you live in medieval England. We are not eating there. And he's like, who said it had to be medieval England? Why couldn't we go to England during the 70s? And it would be like a fucking Austin Powers movie. And she's like, that might be the best idea you've ever had. And anyway, then Phil calls, and so they show up, and the entire town of Lead Church is overrun by dragons. They call Jeff.
See that coming.
Yeah. They call Jeff, and he's surprised. He's like, what do you mean there are dragons there? So he's like, hold on a second. And he goes, and he comes back, and he's like, oh, crap. And they're like, what's wrong, Jeff? They can't figure, at this point, we have no idea what's going on. So everyone else shows up, and they decide they're going to try to get the dragons out of town. So they start dealing with them instead of killing them. The initial thought is, if we kill them and make it look too easy, that wouldn't be a good thing. We need to kind of put on a show or whatever. And as they start trying to figure this out, how they're going to do this, they start figuring out, we really can't kill the dragons, can we? And
it's hilarious.
Yes. And then we get the added surprise of Jeff. Why does this one have horns? And he's like, what do you mean it has horns? And it proceeds to headbutt Martin through a wall. So Jeff runs off, comes back, and he's just like, oh crap. And they're like, what did you do? And he's panicking at this point. And then, like I said, Martin gets rammed. The wizards start using their macros to basically try to get the dragons out of town. People start getting hurt, though. What's funny is the dragons can blow fire, but it can't burn anything. But when the villagers start shooting flaming arrows at them, and they bounce off and start hitting their thatched houses, that's what's starting the fires.
It's like the biggest face palm.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
This is so frustrating. This whole part of the book.
It is.
I know we keep saying we want to see this as a TV series. I want to see that. I want to see the scene where
it's like a Monty Python
exactly.
movie.
It really is.
The scene I want to see in the TV show isn't till later, and you can probably guess what it is. We'll get there in a minute. So anyway, Honor and Sonny show up. They see the town is in disarray. Sonny and Gilbert get hurt. Honor runs to the church. She sees Hubert the Dung Sifter. He's about to get blasted by fire, and he holds up something. She doesn't know what it is.
His idol.
Yeah, he holds up something and gets blasted with fire. And even though he feels the heat, and he feels the pain from that, he's not actually burned, and he survives. And he's just like, oh my God, I survived, and blah blah blah.
Because of this.
Yes, because of this. Yes. And then here's where it gets really interesting. So during this entire time, we're getting two perspectives on what's going on. We get the perspective of the wizards, where Philip has flown up high, and he's using like the megaphone voice, and he's telling the people, don't shoot the dragons. You're just going to burn the town down. And then we get it from Honor's perspective, and her perspective is, don't shoot the dragons. You're going to burn the town down. Like, it's very ominous, and it's just like, and some of the language he used, I could kind of see works both. I mean, definitely could be, seen both ways. Some of it was a little questionable, but we're definitely seeing it from her perspective, where even though the wizards, we know the wizards are doing their best to help. They're pretty incompetent, but they're trying their best to help, where she's literally seeing them as they're attacking and trying to kill and destroy the village. So they end up, Gwen and Britt start putting a spell on people to basically knock them out so that they can hopefully get them healed or whatever. This was something they talked about. And they pop back to Atlantis, and they find Louisa, who's the president, and also the president doctor. And basically drop all of this off on her. They're like, yeah, remember that medevac protocol we were working on? Yeah, we kind of used it. And she's like, well, how many people are there? And they're like, there's like 50. And she's like, what? It's like she's losing her shit over this. And they're like, no, you'll have help. And she's like, are you going to stay and help me? He goes, well,
no,
not me, not right now. And she's like, so you're telling me Britt the old. Yeah. So yeah, that was funny. So
can I just say, during all of this, all I'm thinking is, why didn't they just go somewhere at another time and then pop in at the same moment they left, and figure out how to fix it from afar, and then come back like Gwen did when she got whatever she needed, where she spent a week with her family. Like, this just all seems so unnecessary. They can time travel, for God's sake. Did anybody else have this thought, or is it just me being a Debbie Downer?
No, because they even postulate that. I don't remember if they postulate that in this book or in one of the other ones, but they do bring up the fact that they're like, even though we're time travelers, like, our brains just are not working that way. Like, oh, that's right. They do actually bring that up in the book. They're like, well, we'll talk about that near the end, but they do bring up the fact that he's like, why did we really did not have to separate into groups. We really could have gone every single place as a group, taking care of this, and had it all been done. But our brains just did not figure that out. We're just not that smart. So. But
they can figure out how to date in different centuries? Give me a break. God.
I like how you think the dating part is the hard part, not killing the dragon.
Well, I'm just maintaining relationships across dimensions, even like in the future with their current families and friends. It's like, how do you do that? Just, I don't know. Anyways, moving on.
Britt and Gwen rejoin the wizards at Martin's place. Jeff explains how he created the dragons, and basically he says he found an animal, and he essentially, we dropped Jennifer. Hopefully she'll be back. There she is. He basically used sheep to base his dragons off of, and then of course added a bunch of stuff. And he's like, they're docile. They should have been perfectly fine. And then we have a whole conversation about, do you know what a male sheep is called? And he calls it a heap. And he's like, it's a ram. It's a ram. And that's why Dodge names their trucks Rams, because they're fucking aggressive. Yeah,
Tyler's explanation was pretty funny.
Yes, I loved that.
Love Tyler.
Yeah.
And then Phil brings up, well, why don't we go back in time to warn ourselves? And literally Martin shows up and does this whole, like, in a spooky voice, is like, Philip, don't say going back into the past. All you're going to do is cause a fight. And then, like, literally goes back, and he's just like, 30 seconds later, he's like, here, I'll go back and demonstrate it. And of course goes back and has to do it. But, time travel's hard. So let's see here. So the people of Lead Church gather at Mr. Gibbons, and they discuss what to do. Honor screams at the thing and basically gets everyone's attention.
Yep.
that's one of those things. It's just like, all right, someone needs to shut this kid up.
That's where I gave up on Honor being like a noble character.
Yeah.
He's a little shit.
And then there's a debate, and they start having a debate between her and some of the adults, and she starts bringing up some stuff that, of course, they, immediately shot down. But then she brings up some stuff, she's like, I saw a wizard and he had one of my sheep. And they're, of course, like, why would a wizard steal one of your sheep? And she goes, I don't know. He was running around and doing weird things with it. And that kind of implied something. And they're like, okay, this is serious. Not saying what, but this is serious. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to go check it out. And she's like, well, I can take you to where the dragons are. And they're like, no, little girl, it's fine. The grown men can take care of it.
We've got it.
Yeah. And then get their asses handed to them.
And this was her first introduction to mansplaining.
Yep, pretty much.
Not her last.
The next, not her last in this one. The next scene we meet up with Kluge. Now here's another character that has appeared in multiple books, but we never really have gotten a lot on. So Kluge wakes up and the bastards are running around. The bastards, by the way, are his gang. They're running around and they find there are 3 dragons in their camp, and they're like, Kluge, what are we going to do? And he's like, get some rope, because his thought is, this is my chance to get the fucking wizards.
So what I liked about it first was, a normal man would be absolutely scared. And they even said that Kluge felt scared, but his mission was, let's get this fucking thing, because I want to use that to get against the wizards. And I liked how that happened. That was good.
Which we got the explanation for that in the previous book. That's one of the other things I also liked, is the fact that it did make that reference back to the beginning of book 3, because book 3 literally starts off with Todd and his, basically, all the horrible things that he did to Kluge. So, so we understand why Kluge has a chip on his shoulder. It's just, he apparently hasn't let it go though. So, So Jeff and Roy show up at the cage with 2 remaining dragons. The wizards demonstrate how they've been trying to get rid of them, and they start showing off all these other things. They're like, we used they used like beams and stuff, and they're basically like, they're not real animals. They're just like kind of like a video game character. Like they're literally hollow on the inside, but they act like
They delete half of it and it's still walking around.
And it's still there. It doesn't even like fall down. It's like literally just like, it's like all 4 legs are there, but they're, and so they're finally like, well, did y'all not figure out something? They're like, no, you've been looking at the solution right here. They created a goal. And I love the fact that that's part of the that's part of the Esperanto that they come up with to actually create it. Is, they literally go goal, and they just have to herd the dragons into the goal to get them there. So, so Jeff and Roy say that they're going to go they're going to go to multiple places, and they're going to go, certain issues. They're going to go take care of the ones in Lead Church, and everyone else is going to split up, and they're going to go. So, flip back over. Honor waits in the church next to her brother. As the party returns, they come back with they're all beat up and everything. They couldn't find anything, but they're like, we believe you, Honor. Like, it's like the forest itself was trying to keep us from seeing what was ever out there. So she ends up leaving, and it's at this part, Hubert, the dung sifter, comes up and gives her the kiss doll that he's found while he's sifting dung. And tells her that this is what saved me from the dragon's breath. So maybe you could use it if you're going out to do what I think you're going to do, which is go look for the fucking dragon. So, flip back over. Louisa goes to see Britt the Elder for help. Britt basically tells her, Britt the Younger, never told her what happened to be spiteful. So she literally does not know what's happening and how to fix it. And of course that drives Louisa crazy. And she's like, yeah, how do you think I feel? There's a lot of animosity between Britt the Older and Britt the Younger. So, so now we start breaking into pairs. So we got Martin and Philip. They appear and they can't find the dragons, and they start asking questions. They're like, didn't you think it was a little odd that, the girls didn't want to, go off with us, like, and want to kind of do their own thing? And then, Philip's like, no, like, the key thing about being in a good relationship is you have to have time apart. And then Martin starts bringing up, he goes, well, didn't you also think it was kind of odd that they specifically wanted to go up north to Scotland? And he's like, well, why? He's like, well, what do you think when you think of Scotland? He's like, and he starts naming off stuff. He's like, no, kilts. He's like, didn't you ever notice that all the men in Atlantis wear kilts? Did you ever think, well, maybe where Brit got the inspiration for that? And of course, that little seed is now in the back of Philip's head. It's like, good going there. They call Jeff for a map. He sends them a map. And I love the fact the map literally looks like a JPEG for Carcassonne, which is a board game. He's like, just follow the dots. The dots will help you get there. So, they go. Let's see here. Also plays. He goes back and gives Brit and oh no, I'm sorry, I was skipping ahead there. So, they follow the trail into the woods. A man shows up, Neath, and leads them to a cave that's full of gold that Jimmy created back when he was building Camelot. And he's telling them, the dragons are in there, and can you get rid of the dragons and cause to save my gold. And they're like, well, we could just put a goal up and just wait for the dragons to come out. And he's like, no, you have to save my gold. And he's like, well, why? He's like, because I'll pay you in gold. And they're like, we're wizards, we don't need gold.
We can make gold.
Yeah, we can make our own gold.
So were they programmed to like be attracted to gold? Like,
I guess so. That was one of the interesting things. Yeah,
that's the dragon trait.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. I guess it makes sense because if you think Lord of the Rings, I mean, Smaug basically slept in the huge chamber with all the gold. So, I know because I'm rereading book 1 right now. Jeff does say he's a huge Harry Potter fan, so I have a feeling if he's a Harry Potter fan, he's probably also a pretty big fan of Lord of the Rings too. So, anyway, so we go to Britain, Gwen. There they find a group of Scottish warriors, a group of 4 Scottish warriors, and they're currently trying to battle the dragons.
Wooden shields
and everything else, and so the girls basically show up and take care of the dragons, saving the men's lives, and they go on, and this is one of the things that, like I said, I understand it needs to be long and repetitive for it to be funny, but rereading the book multiple times, I'm just like, okay, I can really do with this, because they're literally declaring their honor for killing the dragons on their wife and their daughter and their other daughter and their son and their mother and like their whole fucking family.
But that's how it is in that culture. They've got to bless everybody and everything and go back 100 times and argue the whole damn time.
And then the guys start, like, the one admits that he's had a thing for the other one's wife. And they get into this fight, and of course the girls are just sitting there watching these guys fight in kilts and discussing how free the kilt seems to be for people to fight. And at this time, Jeff basically calls Gwen and sends her a map, and she's like, "Why would anyone need a map? We're looking for dragons." And he's like, "I can't say." He's like, "It was Martin, wasn't it?" And he goes, "I can't say." Flash sideways. I'm gonna keep saying flash sideways. We get to Jeff and Roy. So they go to Lead Church. They take out the Lead Church dragons, and they do actually at one point mention that while they're taking out the Lead Church dragons, they can look over and see the group from the past talking about what their next move is going to be. So they at least kind of took your advice on that one, Jen. They just didn't take it to the full extent. So, so they end up going to Camelot to take out 5 more dragons. And the dragons are eating in a field. They're trying to figure out how to get, the dragons to go along. So, like, Jeff's coming up with, like, creating apples and stuff and getting the dragons to finally start flying. And they're following him around in the sky, which is really impressive. And Roy's like, I thought this was hilarious too. they're trying to figure out what dragons or what sheep would like to eat. And he's like, well, let me go look it up. And Roy makes this comment. He's like, oh, look at me. I don't know anything. I'm just going to look it up on my phone. And he's like, well, why am I the idiot? You're the one who doesn't know it and are just standing there willing to be, ignorant about it from here on. I'm actively trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
So, I have run into that in real life. So I completely and totally understand that. I've had people go, oh, yeah, I'll just look it up on my phone. Your generation. I'm just like, yeah, at least I'm getting the knowledge, you old dick. Sorry. But anyway, so, okay, now here's my favorite pairing in the group. So we get Tyler and Gary, and they've actually come up with the best way to kill the dragon.
Oh my gosh, they were genius until that little girl.
Gary is attached one of these huge fucking goals to the end of his wand or to the end of his staff, and Tyler appears, distracts the dragons, and he literally like sweeps it down like a butterfly net and destroys the dragon, disappears, and like they knock him out really quickly and they're down to one dragon.
Yep.
And so, yeah, they find this little girl. She's basically sitting on this dock with a dragon, and named four, and then our dragon's name is Kelly.
Yep.
And Kelly loves her, and she loves Kelly.
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 Yeah. Gary suggests grabbing the little girl, but Tyler's like, "What is wrong?
That's creepy."
Yeah.
Idiot.
Yeah, so Gary goes to talk to her and ends up just making her upset, which Tyler thinks is hilarious. Let's see here. Flash sideways, Runt and Honor head home. They find the bastards trying to subdue the dragon. They find a second dragon, and she gives it a scone. And the dragon, naturally being a sheep, is down with the scone. Falls asleep. Kluge is like, how the hell did you do that? She gives the other dragon a scone, and Kluge like starts to like warm up to Honor. He's like, he's still gruff as all hell, but he's like, how did you do that? Like, can you teach us how to do that? And how do you bake scones?
Mm-hmm.
And also, how do you bake?
Let's see here. I also love this scene. So we have a guy from Lead Church. He wakes up to two female demons. Female demons are literally just like that sexy, quote unquote, sexy female demon costume you'd find at like Spirit of Halloween or Spencer's or whatever. And they were like, yeah, we could have made our own, but why? This is already a thing. We'll just use this. And it's actually Britt the Elder and it's Louisa, and they ask the guy questions about what hurts or whatever, and basically tell him that, listen, you're in hell, we're demons, this is your second chance, straighten up, fly right, and you'll get to go back and live again. So,
but I love that Louisa's not trying. She's like, yeah, okay, no, I need to know if you're okay, and then. But Britt the Elder's like all into it.
She's fucking with him.
She's like saying everything like a snake. She's drawing out her S's. Yeah. This is Sylvester, and just that's funny shit. Let's see here. Martin and Phil have a day. Start talking about unfortunately pressuring Jeff to make the dragons was wrong. So they're trying to figure out how to get the dragons out of the cave and to go through and to go through the goal. So Martin comes up with an idea and comes back and basically they're like, well, what would scare a dragon that's got the mind of a sheep? And they're like, we'll make a giant wolf. And so he then creates a giant wolf that like the mandible, he said, doesn't even like fold like it would. It just like drops up and down like a really bad puppet and proceeds to start singing like the dog version of Jingle Bells. And of course he tells Philip, because I thought you would enjoy that. He's like, I would if I wasn't terrified. Because the dragons basically just start flying around this large cave, knocking all the gold over, blowing fire constantly. It's mayhem. And then they start attacking the wolf and Martin. Let's see here. Flash over to Gwen and Britt. The men are fighting. They basically tell them, listen, we have to help you kill the dragons. because we made, we did an oath. We have an oath to do so. And I thought that was, I love this scene because I love the fact that Britt is like really like, no, which one was it? Was it Gwen or Britt?
Britt was the one that kept getting triggered.
Yeah, Britt was the one that was getting triggered.
That's for girls.
And Gwen was like, that is not what they're saying. They're saying they have to do it for them. They know we can kill them. They've even mentioned, y'all are the ones that killed the dragons. But we need to go with you to basically fulfill, our honor bound role. And they go down and ask, and they're like, yes, absolutely. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're women. It has everything to do with the fact that we need to be part of this, except for the one dumbass that goes, yeah, but it was to be a little embarrassing since you are women. And of course they like beat the hell out of him again. So, let's see.
I love that. Like every time they start to have a moment, like somebody says one wrong thing. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I could kick your ass. And they start fighting again. And it's like back to square one. Such guys.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yes, absolutely. Let's see here. So Gary makes his way back to Tyler. Tyler tries to go talk to the little girl and she calls him a butt brain, which Gary just loves. He's like, does that mean your butt is in your brain or do you actually have a butt for, he just has to, he returns to Gary. They try again with the little girl. It doesn't work. He challenges her to a game, and Gary's like, yeah, just take one step further back, and he ends up falling into the water. And he's like, yeah, Gary's an asshole, but I love Gary. I'm sorry, I do. Flash over. Jeff is leading the dragons around in the sky. Roy's like, hey, let's showboat a little bit, kind of build this up a little bit. And unfortunately, Jeff flies a little too low to the city, and all the dragons go down into the market in Camelot and basically just start destroying the market, eating everything. Gwen and Britt wake up Bishop Galbraith and basically tell him kind of what's going on. They won't tell him everything, but they're telling him what's going on. And they're like, we kind of need your help for this, if you wouldn't mind. He's like, okay. Yeah. It's funny that he said, they're like, we were afraid you weren't going to be okay with lying to people that they're in hell if they don't make things better. And he's like, it's kind of what my whole religion's based on.
I love this. Okay, so Bishop Galbraith is what he gets his position in Christianity. He's like, I believe it, but I get the business behind it. And he's not he doesn't, he's nice about it. He doesn't make you feel too guilty, just enough. Just enough to make you feel to be a good person. Yes, to be a good person, but he's not an asshole about it. But he gets it that that's what he's supposed to do, and he's totally okay with it. And I really like him.
I do too.
And this book made me like him even more.
Yes, this one made me like him even more.
And he isn't above going to the bar to get, have some
confessions.
Fun.
Yeah.
Take advantage of
his
position a little.
The realist bishop.
Yes.
He's not high and mighty. No.
Right.
I did really like his character in this as well. And then, of course, in a second here, he gets into it as well. Let's see here. Honor gets the dragons to calm down with a scone as Kludge ties a rope around it. They get the dragons to both lay down or whatever. And she promises to help the bastards out with the dragons and bake scones. And Kludge is like, she's like, but I'm tired. I need to go home. I have to take care of my sheep and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to send two of my best guys home with you. They're going to watch over you. They're going to take care of the sheep. And you're going to teach the one how to bake. And the reason I'm sending him is because he's my best guy. He knows if he doesn't do it, I'm going to beat the hell out of him, which is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. So we go back over. Britt and Gwen have the Scotsman in a diamond bowl and they're flying around trying to find the rest of the dragons. And of course, these dudes are just like eating it up with a spoon because that'd be fucking awesome too. And then they have a discussion with the men about killing the dragons. The men attack the dragons. The girls have to save them again because literally, like, they run out there. The ones shooting arrows. The arrows are falling down off the dragons onto their own guys.
Braveheart.
Yeah.
The entire time this whole Scottish scene is playing out, it's like a mock version of Braveheart.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It really is.
Yes, because they even go through the whole thing of putting on the blue body
yeah.
paint and everything. So, and it's at this point we get our first real idea that's helpful for the entire book, and that is Brent and Gwen go, have any of y'all ever like dealt with sheep, or have y'all ever herded sheep? And of course, all four guys are like, yeah, I've herded sheep. So they're like, well, maybe we should ask them how the best way to handle this would be, which is kind of the whole plot line, because it ties up in the end here, and we'll get to that in a second. But is asking people for help.
I thought it was interesting that they all finally got to that point where they were like, we should think about what to do with sheep or how to treat sheep, and they all came to independent like,
yes,
this is what sheep like, or we should get this or that. And it was all different, though. It was kind of funny that none of them had overlap.
We're not above everyone else. Maybe we should ask for help and ask professionals. Yeah. But I mean, that happens. That happens constantly. Hell, that happens in my job all the time. So anyway, let's see here. We have another guy wakes up, and now there are three demons. There's a male demon, and he's telling him that he's a candle maker, and that he needs to spend more time with his family and stuff. And Louisa says he's getting a second chance, and of course he's like, make sure you tie to the church, and the girls are just like looking at him like, really? You just had to throw that in there, huh?
He's a businessman.
Yeah,
he gets it.
Yeah.
But make sure you take it easy for 2 weeks.
Right. Yes.
No heavy lifting.
And don't chew on anything. Don't chew on certain types of tree bark or whatever. Tyler's watching Gary make a pit and covering it with dirt so the little girl can walk over it, and the dragon will fall in and then fall into the goal. And he's like, well, how are you going to get her across there? And he's like, because of this, and he starts using a spell that lets him, it's a ventriloquism spell. And he's also able to change his voice to sound like Tyler. And he's like, how long have you had that? He's like, you remember that time we were at that bar and that blonde slapped you for no reason? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that was a reason. Of course, the little girl walks across and it's fine, and they're waiting for the dragon to go. Well, the little girl gets a little far ahead of the dragon, so it just flies over. and Gary walks out and gets pissed and stomps his foot and goes through and almost goes through down to the goal. And at this point, Tyler's like, you forgot the dragon can fly, didn't you? He's like, yeah. And he's like, and you probably forgot that you can fly too.
It kept happening to him.
Keeps happening to poor Gary. Jeff and Roy can't get the dragons to leave or stop eating the apples. The guy selling the apple cons them into paying him. And it's at this point, the pear salesman, the carrot salesman, the rhubarb salesman, and pretty much everyone else starts dumping their stuff. And they're like, oh no, the dragons have ate all my carrots. What am I going to do?
I fell over again.
I love Roy's reaction to this. I love it because the one person's like, I've lost all of my carrots and have no money to get my daughter leeched. And he's like, come here, I've got plenty of leeches. Phil and Martin remove the wolf. Martin goes and gets grass from Home Depot and starts making grass layers or whatever to get the dragons to finally start going out. But unfortunately, at the same time, Neith is running in with 2 more dragons that have followed him. And so now instead of like 4 dragons, there's now like 6 dragons with all this gold. And they all head back into the cave. So, Neith is like, it's even worse now than before. And they're like, well, what the hell do you want us to do? Like, we're trying to help, but switch back over. Kluge gets one of the boys to ride a dragon and honor watches. Neith yells at Martin and Philip. They walk off, leaving him, and they realize that Neith doesn't even own the gold. Because they're like, he made, I don't remember what the comment he made. He made some comment and they're like, just because it's on your land or whatever. And they're like, and he doesn't say anything. And they're like, this is your land, right? And he's like, well, kinda. And that really pisses him off. So Martin at this point does something drastic, as Martin is wont to do. And, the next thing they know, this portal shows up, there's a portal that opens up and Martin is standing in a town and he's telling everyone there's enough gold that you could walk out with hands full and there'll still be plenty more. And so all the people come through, and he puts a magic protective spell on them, telling them that the dragon's fire and claws will hurt, but they can't really harm you. Neith starts getting pissed off. Guy runs in. You hear screaming. He runs back out with a bunch of, I think they were like, I don't remember what it was. It was some odd object made out of gold, and he has a handful of it. And he's like, "No, he's telling the truth. There's tons of gold in there."
Yes, it was all different shapes and sizes and different bricks and stuff like that to make the castle.
Yeah,
and it's leftover gold that Jimmy never used for that. So
yeah, they were like nuts and bolts or something that he brought back out. But yeah, and then so everyone runs in, scaring the dragons. Dragons fly out and immediately fly into a goal that they've set up. And, of course, Philip's like, that was your plan. He's like, well, that was my plan all along. He's like, no, it wasn't. You didn't have a plan. He's like, yeah, it was. My plan was to do this and see what happens. That was the plan. Let's see here. Gwen and Britt make a diamond sphere around the dragons, and they turn the sheep. I'm sorry, they turn the sheepdogs into winged horses. And I love the explanation of this. They're like, well, how is this going to work? And like one of the dogs looks up and starts to fly and then stops and then cowers. And I can just see this horse somewhat just kind of, this Pegasus up in the air, cowering with its tail and its head down like a dog does, whimpering, and then figuring out it can fly. And then they just starts going crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't recognize themselves as horses, so they were chasing the other horses.
They were chasing each other. Yes. And then eventually they let them in, and the horse dogs, however you want to call it, Pegasus dogs, get all of the dragon sheep to go through the goal. They herd them through. They come back down, and whenever they turn off the macros, so they turn back into normal dogs. I think it's funny that the dogs are all like disappointed. They're all like looking up, like, what the hell happened? Why can't I fly anymore? They drop the men off an hour away from their homes and say goodbye, and they're done there. So now, you were mentioning earlier in the book that there was a scene that you wanted to see as the TV show. This is the scene that I want to see as a TV show. So Gary decides the best way to attract this dragon is to make a sexy lady dragon.
I feel like they did this in Shrek.
That's what I was just saying. Oh, you're a girl dragon.
Ooh, of course you are, because you're just reeking of feminine beauty.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that what's his name is just like, he's just like, I never said this was a good idea. He's like, you said this was a good idea. He said, I just never said this was a good idea. I just wanted to see what your idea of he's like, it was wrong for you to put mammary glands on a dragon and to give it a thinner waist and to give it makeup. And he's just like, what the hell were you thinking? And it's at this point that Martin and Philip appear because they've taken care of their dragons to help out. And Martin falls down and literally cannot stop laughing for like 10 minutes. And then it's, they ask, they're like, well, what all have you done? And they're like, we've tried everything. And they're like, all right, good enough. So what did the parents say? And they're like, what do you mean the parents are like, when dealing with someone else's child, you immediately go ask the parents. Are you two that stupid?
Yeah. And
so Martin's like, here, she can't live that far away. I'll go find the parents. So he flies off. Philip's like, I'm gonna go talk to the little girl, and Gary and Tyler are like, oh, this is gonna be good. So Philip walks over, and of course, being an older, nice gentleman, he sits down and immediately befriends the little girl and is laughing along with, all the names that she called him and everything else. And they're just like, well, fuck.
Well, what do you mean he's a butt brain?
Yes, that sounds very silly. The parents show up. Martin causes a portal to show up. The parents show up. They call the little girl over. Tell her that if Kelly is still here tomorrow, you can play with Kelly, but Kelly's going to go play and be with other dragons. And of course, they promise, yes, they're going to take care of the dragon. And then they still have the guys end up taking care of the dragon. They're like, we took care of the hard part. You can finish off the dragon yourself. Philo, Martin, Gary, and Tyler appear over Camelot. Gwen and Britt are there and see the dragons eating all the food. And then they yell at Jeff and Roy. And Jeff flies up and basically explains what's happening. And then Martin decides, he's like, all right, I got this. These are my people. I got this. And uses a macro to turn himself like he's like glowing. He's got like red light shooting out of his eyes. His voice is super amplified or whatever. And then sees the guy that he buys cheese from. And he's like, yeah, I'm not really that intimidating right now. I'm just going to turn all the shit off. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. And they basically tell Jeff and Roy, go take a break. Everyone's going to line up. We're going to compensate you. There's not going to be an argument, and we'll take care of it. And while everyone's taking care of this, Tyler and Gary show off their whole, giant butterfly net taking care of the dragon things. They get done with this. Everyone's like, all right, there's only like 3 dragons left, or 2 dragons left, 2 or 3 dragons left. We're going to head back to Martin's place and relax. And Philip's like, well, the last 3 are in Lead Church. That's my home place. I'll take care of it. He disappears. And then he calls immediately, says, I need help, and I need everyone here right now. So let's see here. Honor wakes up seeing the bastards are flying the dragons. Kluge says, they're going to attack the dragon or attack the wizards when they get a chance. And oh, look, there's a flying Philip up in the air. What?
Throwing rocks.
So yeah, they don't even have bows and arrows at this point. They literally jump on the back of the dragons with rocks and go up and start throwing rocks at Philip. And, he's trying to take it in stride until he gets a rock in his mouth. And he's just like, that was just uncalled for. So he produces a force field around him, and he calls the rest of the group. The rest of the group shows up. They create a force field for the rocks. Roy suggests, doing another air show. Phil demands Kluge to come down because Kluge and Honor aren't like, and this was another scene, like Kluge is like, calls one of the guys down, drags him off the dragon. He jumps on to go after the wizards, and Honor's like, I'm going with you. And he's like, no, you're not. And she won't take no for an answer. And all the other bastards are amazed to see this little girl has basically told Kluge, no, this is what I'm doing. And he went with it. Yep. So she flies up. He basically, he's berating Kluge. He's like, yeah, you're hiding behind a little girl using her as a human shield or whatever. They come down to the ground, and fucking Honor like goes after Phil. Yeah. Like she even screams, I'm not a shield, I'm a sword, and comes after him. Let's see here. Honor forces, let's see here. So Roy starts programming a macro to force these bubbles to cause the riders to fall off. And the rest of the wizards have to use their macros, quote unquote, with kid gloves to kind of try to get the bastards off of them as best they can. And there's a hilarious part here where, of course, Gary's still using the webs, but he lands on the dragon that Kluge is riding, and he points a gun at his face, and Kluge is like, what's that? He's like, it's a gun. He's like, what's that? He's like, do you really not know what a gun is? Don't do nothing for me. Yeah, and then Britt's like, or Gwen's like, guns haven't even been invented yet. He's like, what about cannons? You know what a cannon is? And he's like, no. He's like, well, you put a ball and you take this explosive stuff. And I was like, why the fuck are you explaining this to Kluge? Which is exactly why she knocks him off the dragon. But Honor forces Phil to the ground by kicking him in the junk, of course. And it's at this point, like while he's laying there, she's like going off talking about, you wizards don't care about us. You don't care about anyone. And, she's going off, and like he's looking around and seeing other people from the town he lives in. And a lot of them are kind of agreeing with what she's saying. And he's like, oh shit, things are a lot worse than I thought they were. So he immediately calls out to the other wizards and is like, do the evac right now on yourself. So poor Louisa and Britt the Elder have just finished taking care of all the people, and all of a sudden their thing starts going off saying there are more people have shown up, and there's Phil, and he's like, can you please remember how I'm laying in the pose that I'm in? So because it's gonna, we have to use this again. And slowly but surely everyone starts popping in asking Phil what's going on, and it's funny because they start asking about how the hurt people are doing, and they finally just give up, and they're like, nope, wait. And when they finally wait for everyone to shut up, then they're like, all right, now I'll tell you. And Phil's like, listen, we have an image problem. Like everyone thinks, we know we're a bunch of idiots and we're just stumbling through this, but everyone thinks we're infallible and like everything we do is on purpose. And even when we screw up royally, that we're still
freaking like badass. And he's like, we've got a real problem with that. We've got to show them that we are human and we're fallible. So we have to lose this fight. And they're like, well, what do you mean lose this fight? Trying to go through here. Okay, so everyone comes back, and Philip starts taking on this tone. Honor has the Gene Simmons doll, and Philip takes on this tone like, how did you find the Megalo Demon doll? I think is what he calls it, and that if you say this certain phrase, which by the way I love the fact it ends with rock and rollo, that it will cause this stuff to happen. Louisa shows up in the demon costume, says she was the one behind it all, that the wizards would have never done this before, done this because they're good and simple and everything else, and I've been the one behind it. Honor says the passage again, the demon disappears, the dragons disappear, everything basically is fixed, as it were.
I do like how they have to, like, oh, but you can't say this, and she doesn't get it a couple of times.
And so
Reverse psychology.
He's literally like leaning up in her face. If you say this, you. Yeah.
Well, even Louisa had to. Oh, but you can't say that again.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can tell there. And he even says there's a moment like where she's panicked. She's like, "Oh shit, what was that phrase again?" Yeah. And they're just like, "Oh God, please, no, please." So Phil wakes up, thanks Honor, shoots a beam at the church. Everyone's miraculously fixed. Honor goes to check on her brother. And they all start describing to, the bishop about how they were in hell and how, they were told that if they live a righteous life, they'll come back and have another chance and everything else. And of course, he's taking it in stride. He's like, well, yeah, that sounds about right. It sounds, it's funny because he's like, they were like, there was an older demon and he was telling me this, that, and the other. He's like, he sounds like a very wise character. He's like, no, I think he seemed like he was older, like really, really, really old. And he's like, oh. Let's see here. So the wizards apologize and walk back to Phil's shop. And basically, they're trying to figure out what was the lesson that we learned here. And they eventually come around to the idea that what we already said before, maybe you should ask for help. Maybe you should ask people, that know things more than you do about things. So let's see here. So Phil apologizes to Kluge, and Tyler asks what the lesson is. They settle on the fact that people can help them just as well, and then we get to the epilogue. So Phil catches up with the bishop. Phil explains that the wizards are helping the people in town. He also says that the land has been ceded to Kluge and the bastards, and that they're going to pay workers to help them build their own house. And I don't remember which one it was. Was it only Donnie or Longlobes? No. The one is like the one that learned how to bake is like once like this massive kitchen or whatever. And after they leave Brit, Gwen and Martin Kluge agree that they're basically like listen, you're gonna fight the wizards, you're gonna fight us. You're basically gonna be on stripped down versions of the dragons, which I think Martin said something or another. He's like, don't you think they're not going to enjoy that as well? He's like, because basically they're just like flying flame breathing motorcycles. He's like, oh yeah, I can imagine a group of toughs would not want to ride on flying flame breathing motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see here. So the four appear to talk to Honor. They give her this bag that silverware will appear in it once a month.
I like that with Honor. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they tell her, if she ever needs them, if she snaps twice inside the bag, that one of them will come running to help her. So, and all of this is interesting. It's a very good wrap up, and then we get to the point of the book where I'm just like, son of a bitch. Granted, we have the fifth book out now.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
They have to set it up.
But we get the setup for the next book.
Yeah.
Brit the Younger appears at the door of Brit the Elder, and she says she'll answer any questions, but she doesn't really. She's, giving these vague answers. Brit the Elder asks about Kluge, and it looks like we completely lost her. Britt the Elder asks about Kluge and says, he didn't agree. Britt the Younger said, no, he did agree. And, then she's like, wait a minute, you're remembering this differently than it actually happened. And Britt the Elder was like, no, gotcha, I'm just fucking with you. And of course that pisses her off. And she's like, get out of my house. And when Britt the Elder walks outside, she panics because this is the first time she does not remember how things are supposed to go. And of course, as I'm reading this, I'm going, okay, this is interesting. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, that got very interested.
Right. I literally, when I started reading this series, the fourth book had just come out. So I literally was able to go like from book 1 to book 4 pretty quickly. This was the first time between book 4 and 5 that I had to wait. And I was just like, oh no. So, yeah, that sucked. All right. I wish Mandy was still here. Overall thoughts.
It needed more Miller and Murphy.
Are those just your favorite characters, or
they're becoming definitely two of my favorite characters of the whole series? But anyway,
yeah.
No, I like we said at the beginning, it's not my favorite of the series. It did seem like it took a very long time to figure out something that should have been a very simple fix.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah, and they're lucky. Like they got lucky that he used a rare of the sheep, and that's the only reason why there's so few dragons. Otherwise, they'd be able to run by them. And
right.
So, yeah, I don't know. It was okay, but some aspects that I loved about it, and then there's some aspects that I just.
Like I said, I did enjoy it. I love the fact that we got more of the bishop. I love the fact that we got more of him and kind of got more of his story. I love the fact that we got more of Jeff because, like I said, we didn't really get a lot of Jeff in the previous 3 books because he did die in the third one pretty quickly.
Yeah, he was dead for most of it.
Yeah, but we got some backstory on him.
They redeemed Kluge. You actually. I liked Kluge in this.
Well, you understand where all of it comes from.
You do, but I like him and the gang now. It's kind of like, okay, yeah, I can get on board with that now.
Yeah. Anyone else? Jen?
I've kind of said everything I thought about it throughout the show, but yeah, I did like the cliffhanger at the end, so I haven't started the next book. I'm interested to see where that goes. Because I know it's going to be a mindfuck with all the Brits.
It is going, yeah. All I will say about is as soon as my friend Ray there finished it, he called me, and I was at work at the time, and I was able to talk. I was able to talk, but I'm like, I am so glad you called because I needed to talk to someone.
Oh no.
Chris, have you finished the book as well?
Yeah, all of us.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, we've been listening to it as a family, so all 4 of us have been. We've gone through all 5 books together.
Awesome.
It's very difficult to bite my tongue right now, and that's all.
Yeah.
Please. La 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 la.
Mandy, did you have any final thoughts on the book?
Okay, so do you remember in the first book when they all, or at least Philip and Martin, read that book about where the best time to live in medieval England?
Yes.
I really feel like that should have come back at some point. Like
okay, I am re-listening to that book. And I don't remember what the last name on it is, but the writer of that book is named Gilbert.
Who's Gilbert?
As in the 2 dandies from England that do magic but don't really do magic.
The ones that hate them?
The ones that hate them. One of them is named Gilbert. And I'm like, I wonder if that's the same one. But
that's
yeah,
a cruel
so
joke they played.
I thought about that as well.
So that maybe all it is Gilbert wrote that book.
But then why would he write the book to get everyone back to that time?
So-
That's
Because
Yeah.
he hates them and he wants them to go through all that like shit
Yeah, I
living
feel like
in
there's a
medieval
bigger
England.
meaning here. The reason they all came back here because they read that book or skimmed the Amazon review, and so like I keep waiting for that to be relevant. And yeah, I need something bigger happening through all these books to like keep me hooked in.
Mhm.
And this one didn't have anything to keep me entertained. Keep me
The ending?
invested.
Not even the ending with Brit not remembering the same.
I mean, that built toward the next book, but like this one, I felt like it didn't do anything to advance the story.
This was definitely kind of as much as I'd like to say, I know the thoughts on the third book. A lot of people were like, it was definitely an offshoot. There wasn't a lot of magic in that book. It was them kind of dealing with, the fact that they didn't have their magic anymore. But that one did advance the story because we did find out more. We found out what's going on with
Odd.
we found out what's going on with Todd. We got more. We started to learn more about Jimmy's character, and honestly, kind of started liking Jimmy some.
Yeah.
At least I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did kind of have that tie-up part or whatever. Yeah, this was definitely kind of a side. And like I said, of the 4 books that I, up to this point, this is my least favorite. And I can see where what you're saying, that this was kind of a, and the overarching storyline. If this was a TV show, this is that kind of throwaway episode where it's just like, okay, well, we need a fun one in there. So,
Yeah.
But
Well, if he's gonna, I don't know how many books he plans on doing, but there's a series of books that I read. There's 16 books in the series, so
Mhm.
you're gonna have a few that are like,
Yeah.
just simpler, just to till the next book comes along. So I feel like this is kind of that one.
Yeah, because you don't want it to end too quickly, and then
yeah. No, I agree. I wish I knew if he had an idea in his head how many books this was going, or if he's literally. I would think because of the callbacks that he's making and some of the way that some of the things are tying in throughout the series, it makes me think he does have an overarching plan or an overarching idea.
I think so.
And that he's not just making up as he goes along. At least that's what I hope. If not, he's doing a hell of a job tying some of this shit back together. But yeah, you're right about some of the stuff in the first book, and you're right about the best times to live in medieval England. That is something. When I was listening to it again, I heard the name Gilbert, and I thought, I wonder if this is the same guy, and if so, how does that tie in together? And so. But yeah, it definitely works better for a TV series to have that occasional throwaway episode because it's half an hour at most, and 16 hours throughout a season. When it's a book series, it's like, wow, this was up to this point 25% of the series.
Yeah, it's pretty unrealistic to expect it to be 100% all the time, right?
Yeah,
That's a lot of pressure. So.
Yeah.
But, well, alrighty then. Our next book, as you can probably guess, we are reading the 5th book that just came out like last month or whatever in the series. The current book in the 2.0 series, Out of Spite, Out of Mind. So we'll be reviewing that at the end of next month, and I'm sure Ray and I have already said too much, but I can't wait to find out what you ladies think.
Does Jimmy come back? Is Jimmy
I'm not
back?
saying I'm.
He has to,
that's
right?
everything.
Like I feel like you can't not have Jimmy for 2 books.
I'm not saying a thing, and like I said, I'm particularly, and I think Chris and Ray can agree. Jennifer, we're really interested to see what your thoughts are on that.
The pressure.
No pressure. I am not pressuring you to like this book.
No,
I'm not
saying
pressuring
the
you to hate
pressure
this book.
of my knowledge and my thoughts. I mean,
Yes.
it's hard being so well thought out.
But yeah, so as soon as I literally finished this book and was just like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
And was like, as soon as someone finishes this, you've got to contact me, and then like immediately reread it again. So so needless to say, whereas this book was kind of a filler,
The next one has some heavy shit happen. So, it's still fun. It is still fun, but
oh yeah. And there's some characters that I love, and there's some characters that I fall in love with again, and then there's other characters that
you wish would die in a fiery explosion.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So with that said, what else have you been reading? Anyone? I'll be honest, I have not read. I put my Audible account on hold for a little while, just try to get caught up on some stuff. So I literally have gone back and started rereading some stuff, but I have read nothing new in the last month.
I'm trying to I have a stack of books on my nightstand that are new that I'm trying to get through before I buy anything else. And it's Sherry Lynn Kenyon stuff I'm trying to get through. She came out with a new series. I'm a sucker.
Yeah. I'm trying to get back into reading again and stay off of Audible a little bit because somebody's taking all the credits for Harry Potter.
We've been listening. The three of us have been listening to listening to the Harry Potter a lot.
So there goes the credits for that. But anyway, so there's a book out there called The Skin Map, and it's a pretty interesting read. And it actually, anyway, you have to look that one up. But the same writer, Stephen Lawhead, has a new series out, and it's the Pendragon Cycle. So I just started reading that one. And I'm not very far into it, but it is at the very beginning of the book. It gives you a little lesson in Old English to prepare you for reading this book. So it was kind of neat.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yes, very interesting. Jennifer, have you been reading anything else?
I don't remember if I mentioned this in the last show or if I finished it since then, but I read a book by Sylvia Earle called The World is Blue, which is about the ocean and why it's so important to the world and to humanity. Very good, very eye-opening if you're looking for an educational and very somewhat depressing, but
lovely.
But needed, things we need to know about. I also listened to a self-help book called Dropping the Act. I'm going to get this wrong. Scary Close, Dropping the Act to Achieve True Intimacy or something like that by Donald Miller. So that was interesting. Short, pretty quick read, but, working on me. So.
You're a good deal.
You are.
Huh?
You're great the way you are.
Thanks. Aw, shucks.
Aw, shucks. Mandy, have you been reading anything else?
Yeah, so I finished A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza, and it's the first book in Sarah Jessica Parker's imprint for Hogarth Publishing. I was really excited about this. So I read that one. I started Moonglow by Michael Chabon, which is actually a memoir. And then I want to say the memoir I've been editing for the past 6 months has finally been published.
Oh, wow.
It's her name is Betty Thrasher. The book is called Rosebud Roses, and it is, it's on Amazon, but we also have copies that got shipped to her house today in 13 boxes. So it's really, really exciting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. Well, that is our show for the week, or for the month, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, we'll be recording the next episode at probably the beginning of next month. We've kind of shifted to that time. If you would, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Music. You can find us at epicallygeeky.com. You can also find the site at Epically Geeky on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Where can we find you on the net, Jennifer?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Het's Gonna Be Me, and Epically Geeky, Marginally Geeky, and soon we will be releasing Sustainably Geeky, our newest podcast on the Epically Geeky channel.
Yes, we will.
And it's about the environment.
Surprise, surprise. Mandy, where can we find you online?
Mandy Jo Shelton at Twitter.
Awesome. Ray?
Lake Life Artist, and that's on Instagram. That's the main one. Don't worry about following anything else.
Nothing else matters.
Nothing else matters. Chris, where can we find you online?
Instagram at Cedar Birch Cottage. Here at Marginally Geeky, Epically Geeky, and then along with Jen on Sustainably Geeky.
Yeah.
Environment.
Awesome. And you can find my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone on the site, have a good night.